So welcome to this next Working Lunch with Accelerate. We've got 4 in a row about the application form builder. And the reason is we've probably got at least a day of training material and manuals on the subject because it's such a big subject and everybody does recruitment differently. We can model all sorts of recruitment journeys, permanent journeys, temp journeys, and the application forms that slip into them, the dashboards that you need to look at. The scenario that we're really looking at here is either you want to buy, you want to get hold of a bunch of staff because you've got a big campaign or event coming up, or you're generally building your business bank and your talent manager is working with you to build and develop the people that you have got. Maybe it's coming to a time when students are leaving and you need to get people in. But the basic idea is to be able to increase your talent bank. And of course, it's a very important part at the moment as so many things have changed. The way that this fits into the product, the total product, is this teal area here. We're going to be looking through these boxes on the side. So we're going to be talking about things like advertising, requirements plans, filling those slots that you need where you need another 30 people for that event or 60 people for a big campaign or something. So we're going to be looking at recruitment, selection and vetting, which gets more and more difficult, obviously, if you're in a highly compliant marketplace like security, but is nevertheless very important for rights to work in the UK and includes things like making sure that if you ever do, as we have been, get visited by the our friends at what is now HMRC, used to be UK Border Agency, that you can show all of the proof of identities and the proof of rights of work for all of your employees. And then we're going to also look a little bit at development of people. So today we're doing talent management. Tomorrow we're going to spend the time just on one very small part of the product, which is application form builder, because it's such a big area. And that really links into all of the other areas because it's the key component for onboarding people, obviously. As you know, or as we'll look at in talent management today, the application forms could be, you could have one basic one, and then for those who have interviewed and are going to go further, then you ask a whole load more questions that you wouldn't ask in the first application form, or you might just make people fill in one big application form all the way through. So different people's journeys, different companies will have different recruitment journeys. So that's how it fits into the whole agenda. So today we're just going to be looking at additions, introductions, definitions, and some of the demonstrations that I give you will be very, very quick indeed, but they'll be much more expanded in the future events, because obviously I just don't want it to be PowerPoint. I'd like to show some live demos as well. The first thing we have to kick off with, though, is just to say, as the product gets bigger and bigger, we need to simplify it for specific individuals. So there is a specific portal, and you'll be seeing the latest versions and some of the more kind of the versions that are actually live in the field of what's called the talent management portal. So somebody who's a talent manager or a recruiter or an HR person need not, if you don't wish them to, see anything to do with bookings or sales or finance. They can just look at the flows of people in, what advertising medium they came from, and so on. So you can lock them completely down. Or if you put it another way, if we look at the feedback we've had over the years, people want to have much simplified areas. So we want to get the best of both worlds. We want to have an integrated system, but at the same time, somebody who's in talent management does not want to be confused by all of the other stuff in the system. So it's got to be simple for them. So just as an overview, the whole idea is acquire the right people so that the bad ones go to your competitors, to be able to build and evolve your recruitment process. Obviously, to do all the compliance stuff, rights to work, any kind of COVID, qualifications, background checks, and so on. To be able to change that hiring process and to make that the way that the system works makes it's got to be good for the staff that you hire, so they get a nice journey, but it's also got to be very effective for you. Obviously, it's got to link in with your induction training and testing. We have a lot of people who have separate systems for this, and they have to literally export a spreadsheet from their staff into the induction training and then export that to somewhere else. We've integrated the whole lot together. And a lot of our customers now have staff who, as part of the onboarding process, before they get their job offer, they do an induction course and a test, then they get their job offer, and in their job offer email, there's a click to another application form where they put all in their bank details and various other pieces of information that you wouldn't ask earlier on in the process. Obviously, the other part of talent management is that you give them initial supervised tasks during the process that they're with you. Their job application status would go from registered, and then presumably at some point they will leave, and they will either be a good leaver or a bad leaver, and that will be recorded on the system, or they may be just going on a sabbatical or traveling. So the staff journey, one advertises, staff join, there's various applications, vetting, selection, depending on how you want to plan that journey. Then hopefully they work for you in multiple events and earn you lots of money for the business, because that's the main reason we're doing all this stuff. You would want to have a management overview of that. You'd want to keep in touch with them, not just through, I've put down newsletter builder here, but I think it's really important that there's this accelerate chat beast here. And there's also obviously all of the, if I just go back there, there's obviously all of the stuff that the staff app does. So it may be that for a campaign or for an event or a festival, you need French speakers or Chinese speakers for Chinese New Year or whatever it is. And you can ask people stuff that they would not have filled in their application form much later in their career with you by just adding it as a question on the app. You're probably aware you can add those kind of lookups and profiling points in the app. So here is a fairly simple job application journey. And we can automate very complex ones for people, but this is a really, really simple one. There's some way of getting people to actually know that there's an application form out there. And this could be that you have the link to the application form, which you can copy and paste out of Application Form Builder in the signature of all your emails. You could send it to candidates who are interested. It could be that you're advertising on Indeed, Monster, and 3 or 4 other places. And those people who see that and want to join you would fill it in. Then there's a decision point here. And if they go forward, you may interview them. You may just interview them on the phone. You may not interview them at all, depending on the bulk in which you hire. And then you hire them. And then obviously the job journey, that's the job application journey. The actual job journey carries on with lots of work, ratings. They win more and more work with you if they're good and so on. And eventually they'll leave. So the first thing I wanted to define was job positions. A job position is something that you'd stick in an advert, and it would have a job title, a pay rate, and all of the things that you would expect. And it would also raise questions as to how important is it for you to fill this position, and what you're going to do with the pay rate, and how you're going to attract people to apply. And I think this is probably time to get out of PowerPoint overkill and just have a look at how this works. So I've got an example here. So this is one of our responsive application forms. I've put a silly picture in there, but the idea is people can fill it out on their phones. And more where we have tech support questions these days, I share a screen with somebody to help them out, and they actually do fill it out on their phones. The talent management portal looks like this. And what these things here are these are job positions which we've created. And if we look at any of these, so this one here, let's have a look at this. I think there should be a merchandiser here, for example. And this merchandiser is a merchandiser for Liverpool. It's £12 an hour. I don't know what merchandisers get paid. I don't know if that's silly or not, but we've just stuck £12 an hour in there. Obviously, during the course of the advert, you could, if you got too many people, you could turn that down to 8. Or if you change pay, and obviously you could change it up if you don't get enough people. But the idea here is you put all of the details of the job on there, and then those details, once they are approved, so there'd be approval process here, a sign off, where you probably have financial approval and some approval from the person who is, some approval from finance and some approval from the hiring person. You would then tick these boxes here and say, I think we're going to maybe put it on our website, the grocer, and these 15 places, or however many job advertising media you have. And of course, those will have financial implications, which is why you need the financial sign off. So if I hit save here, then you can see that in the audit trail, you can see exactly who signed off what. So if I was to, for example, let's just widen this a little bit. If I was, for example, to, so I'm logged in as somebody called admin at the moment, and somewhere at the bottom here, it'll say admin made these changes. If I did that, then it would audit that I had also said we were going to spend money with Monster as well. If I hit save, so you can see exactly who made all those changes. What you can also see is you can see the applicants. Now, there aren't any applicants for this yet, but as the applicants start to come in, you'll see the job post name that they went for, in this case, merchandiser, the job post reference, in this case, whatever, I think the job position reference is by talent or something there, I'm not sure why. And then you've got the status of that post. Is it still going or not? You've got the first name, last name. Looks like we put two first names in there. The medium name is the advert from which they came, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. It's actually the next slide. So these job positions, when you actually put something on a job position, you can then, if you, for example, hit website, then what this can do is it can send all of that information to the website, and then you get your website developer to grab that information and create a template so that it comes. So if we look at a couple of public examples of that, those job application statuses, if I just go and look at a real live example. So these guys here, if you say, I want to find a job, then you look at this job here, this one, because you live in that area, all of that detail, do you remember all of that detail was in here, in this thing here? So basically, their clever web developer has stuck it on a map because it knows the postcode, it knows where it is, and they've got all of the information, and they've made sure that as the information comes off this form by the recruiter, it then comes out in this lovely, all the fonts are consistent with their site, and it comes out in these nice fonts, bullet pointed, and so on and so forth. And if you click on apply now, you're jumping straight into their application form. Likewise, these guys, again, you've got the map, you go for this particular job, or you just search for jobs with merchandiser or Kickstarter jobs or whatever it is, and off you go, and you're in the application form if you click apply now. Now you'll notice, and I'll come back to this in a moment, that when you go to the application form, you can have different application forms for different jobs, because you can say how people should apply for that job. So it might be that you're hiring something like, a new board director, a new sales director, a new HR director, and you might say email us. So you might say email us at such and such a address. But if it's a merchandiser or a steward, you'd almost certainly say this application form URL. So in here it say you must fill out this application form, and you click that, and then in this box here you'd put in the application form URL, and I'll show you how to find the application form URL from the application form builder in a moment. Now obviously different customers have spent different amounts of money in doing their application forms, and you can see who's been spending lots of money on the graphics, and who's got good graphics, and who's and so on. So once you've spent all that money on advertising, you would for sure want to know that you were getting value for money. So the basic idea, if we start at the top here, is that you create a job advert, and let's say you sent it to 3 different mediums. Let's say Indeed, Monster, and the Grocer or something. Then, in this case, I've got Read, the Grocer, and Indeed. Now, they tag the responses. So when somebody fills out the application form, it tags the responses, and that's how you know which candidate came from which medium. Okay? Because none of us want to spend, most of us don't mind spending marketing bucks if it's going to bring us in a sale or a candidate. All of us absolutely loathe and feel awful after spending marketing money when it hasn't brought somebody in. These are just some examples of customer application forms that we've got with Application Form Builder. This is application forms builder, And what I was going to do was I was just going to show you a very quick demo of how it works, because a screenshot doesn't really do it justification. And we're going to be spending the whole of tomorrow on it. And believe me, it is worth it. It's a big subject and it's well worth it. So this is one of our other demo systems. And I go to admin and I pick in application forms builder. And I've got, because there are different people on the call, I've got all sorts of different types of application form. This is one that I've just started, but it could easily be for your merchandisers or anything. The principles are the same. So I'm going for catering here because it's something that everybody understands. Some of you in quite technical, some of you in quite technical areas, and other people on the call may not understand how your business works, which is why you're so good at it. But the basic idea here is that you can create as many pages for your application form as you want so that people can save the pages. And that's very important. Once people have put in something that they can remember, like their name and address and their date of birth, there may be pages where you need to save that information so you can go and get information that you don't have readily to hand, like your passport number, NI number, the sort of stuff that you have to run around the flat to get. So what we have here is we have the name of the form, because if you have 3 or 4 of these forms, it can get quite confusing. So name of them, and what we call a tag. And the idea is that tag shows the system which form it was that you filled out. And then if you go for different job advertising media, it'll say this is the cater form, but it's also job advertising media 4, or job, which might be Facebook, or job advertising media 3, which might be, let's say, your website. So you can see exactly where people came from and what job they're applying for. You then choose the colors, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. The size of the font, I tend to pick that now. Rounded edges are much more popular than shadow boxes and things now, but the size of font, and then very importantly, do you remember we mentioned this job application status? So somebody who you've never met before, once they start filling in the application form, we tend to make them something like starting to register, or contact created is a really good word to use, because it means they've started to fill in the application form, and you can see how many people have started to fill in the application form. Now what we're saying here is once they've filled out the application form, we're going to make them in the status applied. Now some people call this pending because they then have to go through their vetting, but whatever you call that job application status, you can go into a thing called a job application status drop-down admin, and you can call your job application statuses anything that you want. In here, we've got these job application statuses, or this imaginary new demo customer has these job application statuses, but you will have others. All of our customers have different job application statuses. So somebody who's come in is at the stage applied. Now, if you have people who are where you've got 2 application form process, where you have 1 application form for their basics, you interview them, reject some, agree to ask the others more information, then the job application status that starts your second application form would be different. It would be something like started section application form, and then completed second application form. But that means that you can then see all of the staff that are coming in your staff funnel, if you know what I mean. You can see what stage every member of staff, every applicant is. There's then a registration page where, and you say which banners and things you want on it, and then you can create a page. So in this one here, I've said you've completed your application form. Now we're cooking. In your case, you might say we promise to get back to you in 4 days, or we'll get back to you in the next few hours. Or if you haven't, you might just say if you haven't heard from us, you haven't got the job. It depends. You can put whatever message that you want in there. And edit it, and then you can choose another banner if you wish to. So I've now created here 1 page, and remember you can add new pages, you can add blocks of text to explain terms and conditions and so on, and you can also add conditional sections in there. So I've just added 1 page section by pressing on this. I can then add a question. And the first one I've added is, because remember in the registration page, we pick up the basics. We pick up their email, first name, last name, and to provide a password. So every time you add a question, it says, what kind of question is it? Is it a field? So a field would be for example, if I just go down to fields, it would be a field in the database, and it could be anything like, whoops, let's just go and do this. It could be things like date of birth, could be something about their address, whatever. But it could also be, if I had a question, it could also be a lookup. And when we talk about, when we look at lookups admin, then we'll see that you can add as many of these lookups as you want. So you can create things like, what's your height, what's your weight, what's your hat size if people have to have uniforms. There's obvious things like, do you have a driver's license? There's loads and loads of these things that you can add in there. And I'll just very quickly gloss over the other ones. File upload. Well, that would be a question like the one you can see at the bottom of your screen. Please upload a picture. Please upload a picture ID. Or it could be, please give us a copy of your SIA certificate. Multi-row is like the one just above that. So multi-row, if I click on multi-row, it says what multi-row one do you want? Is it emergency contact details, contact references, added address history, employment history, education, qualifications? What they all have in common is that if you say, for example, for employment history, we need 5 years of employment history, or for residential history, somebody could have lived in one place for all of that time for their residential history, or 17 places. And for some types of vetting, you need to know all of those places. Same with employment history. And obviously, if you have good, contact references and employment history, you might need to put 3 or 4 there. So every time you add a line, you can add another and another line. So it's very different to a normal lookup. So once you've added those things, if we go back to publish the form, save it and publish it. So save, publish. Then if I go back to the overview page, I can click here and I can see the form that I've created. And as I go through it, so if I'm just going to shove a couple of bits in here, and if I think Gmail is already in there, so I'm just going to make another one. Obviously it dedupes on things like the email address and things. Put in the password. I don't know how long it's going to be, probably a lot longer than that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Memorable name, Frank. I have to look at the terms and conditions, and I then click that, and I can now register. So now it takes me, again, I haven't spent very much time on this. I need to format this a little bit, but you can see all of the questions that I asked. There's that, please upload your ID. You can see that just here. You can see that down there, those questions. And this bit here is the one where if you added some information about your first employer, you can then add another employer and another employer and so on in that time. So that's application form builder. If I just sit back to PowerPoint. So that's application forms build, because it's so important to be able to build your own application forms for a new type of hire, to be able to evolve them, to change them quickly. If you get loads of people that start the application form and don't complete it, you need to maybe go through it and find out why that is. We're also going to be looking at the idea of reporting people. So basically, there's lots of ways to see all the people that have applied just now or applied last night, where they are in the vetting queue, where they are in onboarding and so on. So this picture here, this screenshot, is of a bunch of people that are going through the hiring process, and they have this skill, they don't have that skill. It's actually from our vetting form. And Reports Builder produces that, because we can report, not only can we do colors for different sort of job statuses and things, but also we can do pictures in reports so that you can bring all the people back that you're looking at. We can also build a dashboard, and everybody wants a different dashboard. So this dashboard admin shows you that you can have, if you recall, in the admin that we looked at for, so in this dashboard here, where you can see the various jobs, can you see it says new applications, registered application, internal application? You may want to have different numbers on there. So the idea of this dashboard admin, is you choose which ones provide the stats. And then there's other things like you can choose an image to go with the job as a default image. And also down here, you'll see there's links to other things. So this one is linking to Willow, which is one of those functions where as people fill out the application form at a certain job application status, they get a link to Willow. And Willow is a tool where people, you can give them 3 questions and they video themselves answering the questions for you. So we'll be looking at reporting. Of course, reporting, you can graph the figures and so on. These editable grids are quite good. You can go through and you can edit notes and different things about different candidates. This is a list of candidates here. For those of you who are in anywhere near security and SIA badge holding, you'll be aware that the recruitment, vetting and onboard process for security staff is much more complicated and labor intensive. And we've tried to take a lot of the labor out of this by doing the grunt work with an application form. Then there's a certain amount of data file collection where you have to do background checks on people electronically by email and phone calls. And then, of course, there's the actual the oral checks, but then there'd be an interview where you'd invite people into a workshop. And with our vetting system, you've got a tablet-based function or phone-based function where you can take the information, take pictures of the passport, the actual physical passport they have, and so on. And then it also manages the 12 weeks that you're allowed to work people while you're vetting them. But again, unless you're into that, it's not of interest. This is the BS 7858 form that we have for doing that. This is where you collect their photos and IDs and so on. Obviously, this is very different to somebody could upload this photo and upload a picture of the passport, but the idea of using this on a tablet when somebody is in front of you is you look at the physical passport, take a picture of that, you've already got a picture of them, and then you can say, is the passport the same as the person who is standing in front of me? And it does the person who's standing in front of me look like this? So there's a complete proof of identity, which, as you know, is the basic fundamental of any system. Just to finish off with, an awful lot of onboarding can then go on in the app. People can upload a lot more information about themselves, and they can upload all their bank details and various other things that you might not want to collect in the before you employ them. So that's pretty much it, really. I'm not going to deal with induction, e-learning, and things. We've got special times for that now. I'll be putting these slides on the website. What I'm doing is I'm putting them on a link. So if you click on the actual date there, you can see the slides for each day. So I think I've just done the first one now, but basically I will be doing it so that on each one of these, on the 20th, you'll get the CRM stuff, and today you'll get what I've just shown you, and so on and so forth. You can see from Application Form Builder, there's a lot of it. And it's not just about building your first application form builder, which you quickly get into. It's also about how do I link my privacy terms and conditions to it. Obviously, that's different to your working terms and conditions, which people would agree to before going into the app. It's your privacy terms and conditions. So that's the document that you give people to agree to before they fill in an application, which says what data you're going to collect and how long you will keep it in different circumstances. So, for example, if they work for you, you might need to keep certain bits of data for 6 years for the HMRC. But if they don't work for you, you might say, we'll get rid of your name in 2 months, or we'll get rid of all details in a year. Or would you mind if we keep your details for next year, just in case you might be running a seasonal thing like festivals. We're then going to be looking at the applicant tracking system, and then we're going to be focusing in on specialist reports and ways of searching for staff so that you can see all the people that have come in. So thank you very much indeed for your time.